Mega Man X has tons of Mavericks riddled throughout the Mega Man X series, and let me be the first to tell you, some of these guys are ugly, and I mean real ugly, which is why we're here today to go over the ugliest Maverick from every Mega Man X game, X through X8. Because, well, I mean, somebody had to make this video, right? No one else was gonna do it, so let's go. Mega Man X1, the first Mega Man X game ever made, really doesn't have any Mavericks that are legitimately ugly, if I'm being honest. We're still going to choose the ugliest, don't worry, but I like the designs of all 8 of these guys. And yes, I said all 8 because in this video I'm only going to be considering the 8 main Mavericks from each game and not any enemies or mini-bosses because we can look at the ugliest of those things in another video. But enough rambling, this is a serious video, so let's hurry up and get things started. Storm Eagle is quite obviously not the ugliest Maverick. This is one of the best designed Maverick in the entire series, which is evident by the amount of times he gets copied by other stupider wannabe Mavericks in the future. On top of just looking cool and being generally one of the coolest Mavericks in the Mega Man X series, I also like the color palette a lot. Like, purple isn't my favorite color or anything, but it really suits Storm Eagle very well. Chill Penguin is also not the ugliest. I could see someone arguing that he maybe is a little bit ugly, but that would offend me because I actually think Chill Penguin is pretty cute. How could you watch this guy slide around like that and call him ugly? You guys are despicable. Sting Chameleon is one of the prettiest Mavericks in the entire series, like I've said several times in other videos, and I don't think you can be the prettiest and the ugliest thing at the same time without causing problems with the laws of physics, so Sting Chameleon is not ugly. Spark Mandrill is certainly not pretty, but he is covered in pretty colors. I think Spark Mandrill's face might be a little bit ugly, I guess, but even if it is, the colors save him from being the ugliest. Armored Armadillo is just a cute purple armadillo. I feel like Capcom missed a really big money-making opportunity by not mass-producing plushies of this guy. I mean, come on, we would all buy a plushie of Armored Armadillo if we're being honest here, right guys? If anyone says no and calls Armored Armadillo ugly in the comment section, I'm going to report you 8 times with all my alternate accounts, Buster. Flame Mammoth is a big fat ugly elephant, but somehow he manages to be cute at the same time. His loud, annoying screech he makes with his trunk is pretty annoying, but that's the sound waves he produces being annoying and not his physical appearance. Flame Mammoth could also be a pretty good stuffed animal just like Armored Armadillo, so I don't want to call this guy ugly either. Now, you guys might think Launch Octopus is going to be the ugliest, but no, I actually like how Launch Octopus looks a lot. He doesn't have the best design in the world or anything like that, but overall he's super solid and a good looking addition to the Mega Man X Mavericks, which means the ugliest Maverick for Mega Man X1 is actually Boomer Kuwanger. Before everyone gets mad, hold your horses, whoa whoa whoa. I love Boomer Kuwanger a whole lot. He is literally my favorite boss from Mega Man X, as I said in my Best Mavericks video, but come on, you gotta admit he is pretty ugly. If you ignore the fact that he is a bug and that his face is scary looking, then you might think he looks cool, which is fair enough I suppose. But come on, look at that guy. We all know I hate bugs, and I've even made this exception for Boomer Kuwanger before, but he's not getting away with it this time. Boomer Kuwanger is definitely the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X. Mega Man X2, the second game in the Mega Man X series, has Mavericks that honestly seem quite a bit uglier than their Mega Man X1 counterparts. I don't hate the designs of these guys or anything, in fact I actually like the designs a lot, but they just feel ugly for some reason. They aren't ugly in terms of colors or anything like that, but these guys are all definitely some level of ugly. They just feel like ugly, evil monsters. I mean, I don't know how to describe it or explain it, so I hope you guys understand. If not, can you pretend like you do? I don't want to argue with you in the comments, guys, come on. Wheel Gator is a real freaky looking monster, but despite being kind of ugly in general, I actually like how this guy looks. If I saw this guy in real life or at a bar or something, I might think to myself he's a little bit ugly, but as a Mega Man X2 Maverick, I think this guy fits the bill perfectly. Wire Sponge, on the other hand, is a lot more goofy looking with a big ol' stinking frown right on the front of his face. He's not the ugliest, but he probably is the goofiest looking Maverick for Mega Man X2, which I'm sure you know is going to have to be covered in a separate video. On top of his weird looking face and awkward body proportions, he even does these strange facial expressions when charging up his attacks and such that really make it uncomfortable to be in the same room with this guy, let alone fight him. But despite all of that, he still is not the ugliest. Speaking of Mavericks with awkward body proportions though, Overdrive Ostrich is one of the lankiest Mavericks I have ever seen. I like how this guy looks in general, and dare I say he even looks kind of cool, but he's really lanky. Like, he has the body proportions of Papyrus from Undertale, tail on stilts. Flame Stag also looks kind of weird. I don't hate how he looks entirely, and we all know how I feel about his color changing flames, but something about his face is just strange. Like, sure, he is a horse, so like he has a long face of course, but something about it just seems off. Morph Moth is one of the prettiest Mavericks, being a butterfly and all, but that cocoon thing is fairly ugly if we're gonna be honest. I'm not sure if we should let the cocoon hold the butterfly's appearance back, because I feel like that kinda misses the whole point of metamorphosis and such, so I'm gonna pretend the cocoon face doesn't even exist, meaning Morph Moth is very pretty. Bubble Crab looks pretty silly, like he's some kind of Fisher-Price bathtub toy, but I guess that is fitting considering he is a crab and all, and crabs are by the water and stuff, and bathtubs have water, so I don't know, I think it adds up. Magna Centipede has always looked strange to me, but he's hard to call ugly. If you knock his tail off, then he looks like a dude cosplaying as a bug, which I do not like one bit, but if you leave his tail on, he looks like some kind of Pokemon. And I'm no Pokemon expert or anything like that, but those Pokemon things sure seem cute to me. Magna Centipede is also supposed to be a ninja, which makes him way cooler automatically, but he doesn't look like a ninja, and this video is about looks, so what the heck are you doing, Magna Centipede? Come on, get it together! But despite that major blunder, Magna Centipede is still not the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X2. That honor would of course have to go to Crystal Snail. I hate Crystal Snail so much. He's stupid, ugly, and annoying, and I want to punch him in his head. There is literally only one thing good about the entirety of Crystal Snail's existence, which is the fact that I get to knock him outside of his shell and bully him by knocking him all around the room. On top of just generally being one of the worst Mavericks of all time, he's also incredibly ugly. Now, normally I'm a pretty big fan of how snails look. I mean, I have nothing against those guys, but Crystal Snail from Mega Man X2 looks like an evil alien cyborg from a planet full of the most disgusting creatures in the universe. I could rant about this guy for hours, but I think you get the point. Crystal Snail is by far the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X2. Mega Man X3, the final entry of the Mega Man X trilogy on the Super Nintendo, has some very strange looking Mavericks. You all know I love Mega Man X3, and it might even be my favorite of all the Mega Man X games, but overall, the Maverick designs in this game are far from the best or most iconic the series has ever seen. I still like all of these guys, and I feel like they all have a certain charm to them, but we have a job to do, so let's figure out which of these freaks is the ugliest. Tunnel Rhino is the most generic Maverick from this game by far. He's not ugly at all, nor is he beautiful, so he's probably not going to see much screen time in these types of videos. Unless, of course, I do a video on the most generic looking Mavericks from every Mega Man X game, X through X8. Neon Tiger is also a fairly generic looking Maverick, I guess, but only because he's a tiger, which I feel like isn't very fair. Also, I like Neon Tiger. I think he looks cool. And he's fake Mega Rob Dad's favorite Maverick, so there's no way that Neon Tiger is going to be the ugliest. Blast Hornet is just a bee, and I mean, he looks like a bee. I like his design, especially since they added Hornet Man to Mega Man 9, but honestly, Hornets and bees are both kind of ugly and scary in real life. I hate getting stung by those guys, so I always run away from them, but then for some reason they see that as an open invitation to chase me, and I hate that. I'm trying to get away from them. Go away! But I don't hate Blast Hornet for some reason despite all that, so he's not the ugliest. Blizzard Buffalo is a big fat buffalo, and he does not look all that much like a city to me. I actually think Blizzard Buffalo looks really cool though. I love the color palette, I love the design, and I even love those weird glowing horns he uses from time to time, so there's no way you'll catch me calling this guy ugly. Crush Crawfish already won the award for the best Maverick from Mega Man X3, and I'm pretty sure in that video I said I liked the design a lot, so it's no secret that I don't think Crush Crawfish is the ugliest Maverick. Even though he does look really weird, like his body part proportions don't really make any sense, but whatever, it works for him, I guess. Gravity Beetle is of course a bug, which would make you think I hate this guy and think he's ugly, but nope. I actually like how Gravity Beetle looks a lot, both in terms of his colors and his design. He's not the best looking Maverick in the world or anything like that, and I think he blends into the crowd of Mega Man X3 Mavericks pretty well, but come on, none of you guys think Gravity Beetle is ugly, right? How could you call a Maverick ugly to their face? That's evil! Volt Catfish is pretty ugly looking though. It almost looks like he's wearing some form of old lady makeup, and he flops all over the place on the floor, which isn't doing him any favor. I'm not sure exactly why, but this guy has always been one of my favorite looking Mavericks ever since I was a kid, even though I also thought he was strangely ugly looking back then too. Volt Catfish may be the weirdest looking Maverick from Mega Man X3, but he certainly is not the ugliest. The ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X3 has got to go to Toxic Seahorse. And oddly enough, this guy might also give Volt Catfish a run for his money as the weirdest looking Maverick from Mega Man X3 on top of that. All the moving parts of this guy's strangely set up body make me nauseous, and the color scheme does not help out one bit. I guess his actual face isn't all that ugly, ugly, and he looks pretty decent in a stage select screen, but in real life, in the actual battle, this guy is an ugly freak, which is why I'm saying Toxic Seahorse is the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X3. Mega Man X4, the first Mega Man X game to upgrade the graphics on the PlayStation 1, surprisingly did not upgrade the overall appearance of its Mavericks. And by that I mean they're still pretty ugly. I like the Mavericks from Mega Man X4 a lot, don't get me wrong, but I feel like if anything, they're a bit overrated. Some of these guys are great and amazing, but I've heard way too many people claim that Mega Man X4 has the best looking Mavericks in the entire series, when that just straight up is not true. Now, I wouldn't say Mega Man X4 has the ugliest Mavericks in the entire series, and as a matter of fact, it's far from having the ugliest Mavericks. But let's not kid ourselves here, some of these guys are completely atrocious. For an example for some of the better looking ones though, Magma Dragoon is obviously not ugly. This is one of the best looking and coolest Mavericks in the entire Mega Man X series. He is a literal mecha dragon that uses Tekken moves against you the entire time you fight, while also being one of the only Mavericks to have a serious backstory with Mega Man X, even if it is fairly brief. Frost Walrus is also not ugly. I wouldn't call this guy pretty or anything, but his design is great for an ice boss, and I guess I'd say he is fairly handsome. His ice tusks are a really good cherry on top for his design overall, and no Maverick with cool details like that is going to be called ugly by me anytime soon. Slash Beast, on the other hand, is probably best described as the Tunnel Rhino of this game, just because he's extremely generic without having any serious flaws in his design. I like Slash Beast just fine. I think he looks pretty cool, and even his fight is fairly fun, but it's impressive how forgettable this man manages to be. Cyber Peacock also is not going to be ugly. I mean, he's literally a peacock, which are known for being beautiful. In the actual fight, he even whips out his tail feather bouquet just to show off how he's definitely not going to be the ugliest Maverick in any Tooterp video, let alone this one. Plus, I've heard Cyber Peacock is a femboy, which means it's impossible for him to be ugly. Jet Stingray, I feel like, is right on the edge of being both hideous and a pretty cool looking Maverick. I like Stingrays in real life, of course, except for that one that killed Steve Irwin, and I think it is pretty dope that this guy just flies around looking like that, but at the same time, he does look fairly strange. Almost like a paper towel that was possessed by an X-Parasite from Metroid Fusion or something, but that's a pretty bad description, I don't know. Also, on the stage select screen, he looks more like a zebra than a stingray. I'm not sure if anyone else on the entire planet thinks that, maybe I'm crazy, but that just adds to the confusion of this guy. Because I'm so confused, I'm not gonna call this guy the ugliest, but I'm also probably not calling him the coolest or the most beautiful either. But I guess we need to wait for those videos to come out before we know for sure. Split Mushroom is kind of cute if you squint your eyes or you don't know him very well, but if you start to pay attention, this guy looks gross. His face is really ugly and creepy, which I'm not a fan of, and while I do like certain mushrooms in real life, I do not like Split Mushroom. Well, actually, I kind of do like Split Mushroom a little bit, but I don't think he's ugly. Storm Owl seems to be a big favorite in my comment section, but I'm sorry guys, I do not like this dude one bit. I think he's a big fat nerd who really wishes he was Storm Eagle and not Storm Owl, but that's too darn bad, Storm Owl. You're an owl and not an eagle. You gotta deal with that and get good instead of being such a weird nerd. If you like this guy, that's great. I'm happy for you, but I do not like this guy. Despite my strong feelings towards this man, I still do not think he is the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X4. That honor would have to go to Web Spider. Yeah, so I hate spiders in real life. I hope that explains everything. As far as video game spiders go, this guy honestly is not too bad, but spiders just always freak me out, and this guy is about as much of a spider as you could possibly get, so Web Spider is of course going to be the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X4. The ugliest Mavericks have officially been identified in the X Legacy Collection 1 titles, but the uglies are still on the loose in the X Legacy Collection 2 games, so let's go take care of that before someone seriously gets hurt. Mega Man X5, the first Mega Man X game on the Legacy Collection 2 and the last Mega Man X game of the originally planned story arc, actually has some of the least ugly bosses in the entire franchise. Now, don't get my words confused. These guys are not the most beautiful of Mavericks, and these are not the most beautiful Mavericks we've seen thus far, just the least ugly. And by that I mean most of these guys look pretty cool or average, and almost none of them look blatantly hideous, which, while nice, is going to make our job a lot harder. Starting off with the obvious ones though, I think think we all know that Dark Necrobat is not going to be the ugliest. I mean, this guy is one of the coolest designs of all time, and yes, I may have said he was copying Shade Man in another video, but I was just being silly, guys. Come on. Can't I be silly from time to time? Dark Necrobat looks super cool, and I really hope none of you guys in the comment section think that this guy is the ugliest, because, well, if you do, you might just need to get your eyes checked. Same goes for Axel the Red, except arguably Axel the Red is even more beautiful. Dark Necrobat is probably cooler looking, but Axel the Red is one of the prettiest Mavericks of all time. Plus, he is a JoJo reference I've heard, so I guess there is that. Grizzly Slash is the Tunnel Rhino of Mega Man X5 for the same reasons as Slash Beast. I've talked about how this guy very obviously looks like a copy of Slash Beast before, but now that we're doing an entire video dedicated to looks, please tell me I'm not crazy. Yes, Grizzly Slash is a bear while Slash Beast is a tiger or a lion or something, but please tell me they have similar vibes. Whatever, I guess it doesn't even matter, because even if Grizzly Slash is a generic copycat, he's still not the ugliest Maverick. Izzy Glow is another bug, which is not a good start for this guy, but I mean, he's not the worst. He seems like he's cute until you look at his ugly face, but then he whips out his glowing thing, tail, lights, whatever, that makes you change your mind again. But regardless of this guy's glow-in-the-dark features, I still want to step on this guy because he's a bug, and I don't like him. Matrix is the fire Maverick from this game, and it seems like he copied Magma Dragoon a bit, but in a much lamer fashion. Instead of being a dragon, this guy is a flame dinosaur. I mean, come on, that's stupid in itself, but also Matrix just looks weird. I don't hate his design, of course, but his colors seem off, and I feel like he's way too big. But I still don't think he's ugly, which means he's safe from this video. Duff McWhalen is a big fat whale, but come on guys, old Duff McWhalen isn't ugly, and we all know that. I like how Duff McWhalen looks a lot, and while I wouldn't consider him to be pretty, I would consider him to be handsome. I used to think those green things on his face were his eyes, but it turns out they definitely are not. So if you think he is ugly because of those 4 strange green eyes of his, then your opinion is invalid. But I don't know what those are. Can someone tell me in the comments? What are those things? Are they buttons? Are they extra eyes? I don't think they're extra eyes. That would really make me look like a fool. Squid Adler is definitely stressful on the eyes, but it's hard to call this guy ugly. He looks like a creepy, wiry, evil squid that I want to kill, but as much as I want to call him the ugliest, I think that's just completely appropriate for the design of a squid-themed Maverick in Mega Man X. I hate this guy's stage, I hate this guy's fight, and I even hate how he looks. But I'm an honest man, so I'm not going to call him the ugliest just because I don't like the guy, as much as I want to. But this means the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X5 is the Skyver. And that can't be right, I mean, look at this guy. But hold your horses, viewers, because my reasoning for calling the Skyver the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X5 is very important, because I actually do like the design of this fellow quite a lot. I like his color palette, I like his wings, and overall he seems like a noble soldier type of design. But there's just one problem. This guy is supposed to be a beautiful and majestic Pegasus, and he doesn't look like that. He looks like a kangaroo that just joined the Kyoshi Warriors from Avatar: The Last Airbender. This might seem like I'm biased or just being mean just to be mean, but you know what? I don't care. This is my video and I can do whatever the heck I want to, so I'm gonna say it. The Skyver is definitely the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X5. Mega Man X6 has a bunch of Mavericks that look like Muppets. But are Muppets generally considered to be ugly? I wouldn't think so, but Mega Man X6 can surprise you for any reason. Commander Yalmark is very pretty with a beautiful design and color palette, so obviously old Yalmark here is not the ugliest. If anything, maybe this is the prettiest Maverick from Mega Man X6, but I'm sure all my subscribers know by now that's for another video. Blaze Heatnix also looks great, and of course he is not going to be the ugliest. I'm not a huge fan of this fight, and I guess you could even argue that maybe Blaze Heatnix has a weird looking face being a bird and all, but that doesn't seem very fair. Also, I like Blaze Heatnix. Ice Wolfang's design is also super clean. It is still strange to me that he looks like an enemy, which is going to dock him some points from this video, but there is no telling this man that he looks ugly, because he doesn't. Shield Sheldon is definitely the most Muppet-like Maverick from this game, but I don't think he's all that ugly. It is weird fighting a Muppet in a Mega Man X game, but weirder things have and will happen, I'm sure. Rainy Turtleoid is still the thickest Maverick from this game, and maybe even of all time, but he's not that ugly at all. His face and mouth look a little bit weird, maybe, but he does look similar to turtles in real life, which gives him a pass for his weird mouth at least, because, well, I like turtles in real life, and turtles in real life also have a weird mouth that looks like that, so I think that's okay. It doesn't really look that ugly. Being so giant also gives him bonus points for the intimidation factor, but let's be honest, anyone who calls this guy the ugliest Maverick is probably just a Mega Man X6 hater or bad at the game. Metal Shark Player is probably the most underrated Maverick from Mega Man X6 and maybe even of all time, and the design is certainly a big contribution to that. I mean, what can I say? This guy is a cool looking hammerhead shark. It doesn't get much better than that as far as Mavericks go. I guess his name is kinda weird, but I think it's rude and shallow to judge people, or robots for that matter, based on their name, so I wouldn't dare stoop so low. This means the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X6 comes down to either Infinity Majinion or Ground Scarvich. Now, Infinity Majinion is this interesting looking purple guy in what looks like an astronaut suit, and he may have one of the ugliest sprites I've seen in quite a while. But Ground Scarvich, on the other hand, is a dung beetle who rolls his own crap around as a pitiful excuse for a boss fight. This is a tough one, guys, it really is. But to be honest, Infinity Majinion's actual design is not anywhere near as bad as the sprite portrays, so Ground Scarvich has got to be the ugliest. I mean, even if we ignore the fact that he rolls his smelly, disgusting poo around all over the place, and we ignore the fact that he's a bug, he is still super ugly and weird. I guess his mustache is cool, maybe, but even that's pretty ugly, which is why Ground Scarvich is the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X6. Mega Man X7, the first Mega Man X game on the PlayStation 2, and maybe even the worst Mega Man X game of all time. I'm not sure if I'd say this is the worst Mega Man X game of all time, because I feel like it's really not all that bad, but its Mavericks certainly do not do a good job of demonstrating my points. I guess Goth Storm Eagle doesn't look all that bad, but this isn't even a fair example because he's a complete ripoff of not Goth Storm Eagle from Mega Man X1, who is one of the coolest looking Mavericks of all time. And yes, Goth Storm Eagle still does look objectively cool and everything, but I just don't think that's fair to say when his entire design is a slightly inferior version of Storm Eagle. Rydborski also isn't that ugly, I guess. I mean, every Maverick from this game is horribly ugly overall, but relatively speaking, Rydborski is not all that bad. He is being carried by the fact that he is based off of an enemy from a game with much better designs overall, but let's give this guy one of the few wins he's ever going to get by ignoring his origins and saying he's clearly not that ugly. Soldier Stone Kong also looks alright. The colors are kind of all over the place, but they're still very pretty for the most part, and he does still have that weird, ugly Mega Man X7 vibe that all of the Mavericks in this game have, but because all of the Mavericks in this game have that, I think it's better to just ignore that going forward. Vanishing Gungaroo is stupid. I still have no idea how he won the Best Maverick from Mega Man X7 award, but that was a complete scam. He's not the ugliest, I guess, but it's taking a lot out of me to resist the urge to call him the ugliest anyway out of spite. Flame Hyenard is a horrible abomination of a Maverick, as we're all well aware, but really, he's not that ugly. I certainly hate looking at this guy, but as far as looks go, I guess he's pretty regular. Splash Warfly is that weird looking narc fish guy, and he's certainly ugly, but I don't know if he's the ugliest. Luckily for him, he is blue, and I like blue, so that is a plus, but imagine if this guy was like green or something. Wouldn't that look horrible? Ew. Green Splash Warfly? Bleh. I hate how this guy looks, and even if his face wasn't so ugly, he still gives me the same weird body vibes as like Toxic Seahorse or something, but I really don't know how to explain that any better, so I guess that means none of you know what I'm talking about, but let's just continue to pretend that you do know what I'm talking about so we all feel better. Tornado Tunyon is literally an onion. I don't think it looks good for a Maverick to be entirely modeled and designed after an onion, but at the same time, I don't think onions are the most ugly looking thing on the entire planet. They certainly do not look good, and I don't even like onions in real life, but I feel like Tornado Tunyon gets a lot of hate for being one of the more tolerable Mavericks in this game. If this was a video on the ugliest voices though, then maybe it might be another story. But of course, this means that Snipe Anteater is the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X7. For the ugliest Mega Man X7 Maverick, I guess he's not all too bad, but I mean, get a look at this guy, please. He's shaped weirdly, he looks awkward, and his face is hideous and makes me feel like I'm on drugs. Funnily enough, the camera in this fight is also maybe the worst in the entirety of Mega Man X7, which kind of makes me think that Snipe Anteater over here is messing with it on purpose to obscure the view of his horrid ugliness, but even if that's not true, Snipe Anteater is still the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X7. Mega Man X8 is known for being an improvement over Mega Man X7 in pretty much every way, and while I'm not going to get into that in this video, I will say that the Mavericks are certainly a good example of this. I do still think all of these Mavericks look like they should be enemies for some reason, but despite that, none of them feel ugly. I mean, Optic Sunflower is literally a sunflower. Flowers are one of the least ugly and most beautiful things on the entire planet canonically, so Optic Sunflower being a robot based on the looks of the least ugly and most beautiful thing on the entire planet canonically is not going to be the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X8. Gigabolt Man of War is also safe because I've always loved this design a lot. Yes, he does look like an old school Happy Meal toy, and yes, his boss fight is horrible, but he looks cool, okay? He has pretty colors and he looks like an alien robot thing, so I like Gigabolt Man of War. And he's not the ugliest Maverick. Bamboo Pandemonium is a big fat panda, and I like pandas. I'm sure most of you guys like pandas actually, so anyone who calls this guy the ugliest Maverick is probably a psychopath. Avalanche Yeti doesn't really look like a Yeti, but he doesn't really look like an ugly either, does he? No, he doesn't. He seems like he was based on a weird mascot from the side of some snow cone company's truck, but even though he's far from intimidating, he is far from ugly as well. Burn Rooster is obviously not the ugliest. Roosters and chickens do look pretty funny to me, but funny is not the same thing as ugly. Also, Burn Rooster is one of the only chickens I've ever seen who simultaneously looks funny and cool, which is a really hard thing to pull off, so let's give some credit where credit is due here, guys. Give it up for Burn Rooster. Let's go. Woohoo, Burn Rooster. You're so cool and funny looking. How does he do it? What's his secret? Dark Mantis looks like a Muppet from an off-brand 90s movie or some awkward concert goer, but I still like old Dark Mantis. While awkward and maybe even lanky looking, I've always still liked the design as a whole, so you get a pass, Dark Mantis. Though I am starting to realize why you always turn the lights off in that stage of yours. Gravity Antonian almost looks pretty ugly, and I would be inclined to call this guy the ugliest if he wasn't carrying one of the largest posteriors known to mankind. This thing is lethally massive, and out of fear, I refuse to call Gravity Antonian the ugliest Maverick, which means the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X8 is Earthrock Trilobite. I don't hate this boss battle, but just look at this guy. He is an ugly bug that seems to fit the exact same theme as almost every other ugly Maverick in this video, so I'm hoping that you guys are not that surprised, or if you are surprised, I at least hope you don't disagree, or if you do disagree, I at least hope that you're subscribed. But of course, as we all now know, Earthrock Trilobite is the ugliest Maverick from Mega Man X8. Those were the ugliest Mavericks from every Mega Man X game, X through X8. As always, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure to stick around, because in the next video, we're going to be taking a look at the most beautiful Mavericks from every Mega Man X game. You know, since we just took a look at the ugliest.